Hello, I'm Nima Rajan. According to Stats Canada, the economy lost a staggering 1,011,000 jobs in March. This marks the worst single-month change in more than 40 years. The jobless rate shot up from 5.6% in February to 7.8% as the COVID-19 crisis began to take hold. Most of the losses were in the private sector, with the greatest employment declines in the 15 to 24 age group. Economists warn that the numbers will likely be even worse for April, with millions more Canadians now receiving emergency federal aid. Well, with strong control measures, the Federal Public Health Agency projects that 11,000 to 22,000 Canadians could die of COVID-19 in the coming months. The Public Health Agency of Canada says short-term estimates are more reliable, and it anticipates 500 to 700 deaths by the end of next week. The agency released modeling data this morning with different possible scenarios, warning that what happens depends very much on how Canadians behave to keep the respiratory illness from spreading. Well, with Passover upon us and Easter, Ramadan and Vaisakhi quickly approaching, Canada's chief medical officer is reminding Canadians that this year, holidays must be celebrated differently. Dr. Theresa Tam says she's concerned that people may let their guard down against COVID-19 in the coming days. She says this year, holiday dinners must only be with household members, and catching up with family will have to be done virtually rather than in person. WestJet says it plans to bring back nearly 6,400 employees onto its payroll with the help of Ottawa's emergency wage subsidy program. WestJet Chief Executive Ed Sims made the announcement in a video posted to Twitter. Air Canada made a similar announcement on Wednesday that it would use the program to bring back about 16,500 employees. WestJet continues to operate flights during the crisis, but it has slashed its capacity. Meanwhile, a First Nation in southwestern Ontario says one of its members has died of COVID-19. Six Nations of the Grand River's elected chief, Mark Hill, says the community is grieving the death. The First Nation says there are 8 coronavirus cases on the reserve. It had its first confirmed case 2 weeks ago. Six Nations declared an emergency on March 13th and has set up checkpoints to restrict access to the territory. Chief Hill says the community must increase its efforts to slow the spread of the disease and to stay home. While police officers across the country are reporting people claiming to have COVID-19 or intentionally coughing on them. Canadian Police Association President Tom Stamatakis is concerned about the occurrences, saying police are already anxious while responding to the coronavirus pandemic. Some people who have been coughing on police have been charged with assaulting a peace officer, while others are facing mischief charges. Meanwhile, the Criminal Lawyers Association says COVID-19 is affecting prison sentencing because a person may be more of a health risk if they're kept in a highly populated jail where disease can spread. The association wants judges to start considering the virus when sentencing offenders. It cites Dr. Erin Orkin of the COVID-19 Assessment Center at St. Joseph's Healthcare Center in Toronto, who says the virus can spread just as quickly in prisons as it does on cruise ships and at care homes. Well, about 50 institutions across the country are teaming up in a clinical trial to study whether the plasma of recovered patients can be used to treat COVID-19. It involves what is known as passive immunization. Researchers will transfuse plasma from patients who have recovered from COVID-19 to patients in the early stages of the illness in order to provide protective antibodies and hopefully limit the severity of symptoms. The study is expected to last about 3 months and involves more than 1,000 patients. Well, Natural Resources Minister Seamus O'Regan will be on a conference call with his American and Mexican counterparts today in advance of tomorrow's G20 energy ministers' virtual meeting. They want to establish a common front to try and convince Saudi Arabia and Russia to end their oil price war, which has sent prices plummeting. U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to hit the two countries with tariffs, but yesterday, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland refused to say if Canada would slap import duties on oil from Saudi Arabia or Russia. In the United States, 6.6 million people filed applications for jobless benefits last week. About 1 in 10 American workers have lost their jobs in just the past 3 weeks, and officials predict that more than 20 million may lose jobs this month. This morning, the U.S. Federal Reserve is taking additional steps to provide up to $2.3 trillion in loans to support American households and businesses, as well as local governments. Well, fewer than 100,000 people went through American airport checkpoints on Tuesday, which is the lowest number since the U.S. Transportation Security Administration started to keep track. That's down 95% from a year ago and could be the smallest number since the 1950s. There was no commercial air travel in the United States for several days after the terror attacks in September 2001, but people gradually got back on planes over the following months. In the UK, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson continues to improve in the intensive care unit of a London hospital where he is being treated for the new coronavirus. Spokesman James Slack says Mr. Johnson had a good night at St. Thomas Hospital, which was his third night in intensive care. He is receiving oxygen but is not on a ventilator. The Prime Minister was diagnosed with COVID-19 on March 26th and taken to hospital on Sunday with a persistent cough and fever. He was moved to the ICU Monday after his condition worsened. Taiwan has strongly protested accusations from the head of the World Health Organization that the self-governing island was linked to and condoned racist personal attacks against him. President Ing-wen said on Facebook that Taiwan does not condone that the use of racist remarks to attack those with different opinions. She said that Taiwan was the victim of unfair treatment because it is barred from the WHO at China's insistence. China considers Taiwan its own territory. Pakistan's military says it has shot down an Indian spy drone after it violated the country's airspace in the disputed Himalayan region of Kashmir. In Thursday's statement, it said the drone was downed when it intruded 600 meters inside Pakistan's territory. The military released a picture of what it said was the drone. There was no immediate comment from India. Kashmir is split between Pakistan and India, both of which claim the territory in its entirety. They have fought 2 wars over it since their independence from British rule in 1947. Well, a virtual choir has brought students across Newfoundland and Labrador, along with professional musicians and politicians, together in song during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Newfoundland and Labrador English School District shared the video on social media and YouTube today, featuring videos from more than 350 students, teachers, and staff singing O Canada. Premier Dwight Ball and Federal Natural Resources Minister Seamus O'Regan shared the clips, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also makes an appearance, closing out the video with a bilingual message to stay safe. Well, that'll do it for today's news update. I'm Nima Rajan. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you next time.